Hi, this is Kevin Flood, and we're back speaking with Neil Fretwell of the Vintage Hot Rod Association here in the UK. You were saying about volunteers. I think all these things, can't really run without volunteers. I know our mutual friend, Mr. Cochran, came down with his truck and helped out a little bit and stuff like that.
He certainly did. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
The guys that don't want to race, if they still want to come down in their cars, we have a few positions for them so they can do patrol. And the thing about running patrol is you actually get more time on the sand than the race cars.
That's what you said.
Should something fall off the cars, or we've got someone wandering across the track, we'll send the patrol cars out and they'll clear people away. And it's the best seat in the house on the start line or at the top end of the course. So even as patrol, maybe not quite as exciting as racing, but certainly a good place to be. And yeah, we was really grateful for us last year.
But I think also it adds to the authenticity of it, doesn't it? Because if you've got your patrol vehicles that are period as well and stuff like that, it really does add to the whole spectacle, really, doesn't it?
Well, that's what we're trying to achieve down there.
Yeah.
I mean, it will never. I don't really like the phrase "period perfect" because I don't think anything ever is. Unless you've got a lineup of cars that were built in the day. You're going to be hard pushed to do that, but we try and get close, with the guys and girls in the sidewinders and the flag girls. We've got some nice uniforms worked out now. We've got a timing stand that looks the part, built by one of the members. We try our best to make it as in period as we can. And we had a complaint the first year that the Harris fencing spoilt the old look to everything. But I'm not aware of anywhere that you can hire vintage fencing.
No,
certainly
exactly.
not in South Wales anyway.
Plus the fact. Sorry,
I was going to say that the pedant in me, I did mean to come home and see when Harris fencing was invented, just so I could argue the toss.
Plus the fact you wouldn't want to annoy the MOD too much because you might get shelled while you're on there as well, I guess.
Well, exactly that. I mean, a few people have asked if we can have our own speed week down there, but there's two things to contend with. One, the tide would be in.
Yep.
and the second one, as you say, the MOD are putting shells over all week. So
yeah, well,
that may make people go faster, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It's also you were before I interrupted you, you were describing the Prescott Hillclimb.
Oh yes. Yeah, I mean that one. That's a very British thing, really. I know they have hill climbs in the States, but they're more of a straight hill or with a couple of bends in, whereas Prescott's a very windy type of hill. It's I don't. Well, for our cars anyway, the speeds certainly aren't getting that high.
They've got one in Colorado, haven't they? A hot rod hill climb, I think. That's on the road though, that one, and I suppose the only other thing is Pikes Peak, which is just meant.
But that's one we can't quite compete with. No. Pikes Peak, but. But no, it's a funny thing, this hill climbing thing. Most of the tracks, they go one way, they don't complete a circuit. A lot of them don't have a return road. Prescott does, and it's all very gentlemanly. Get in a queue, wait for your turn, and then queue up to come back down again. The British like a queue, so it works quite well for most of them. So,
do you do the test hill at Brooklands as well?
I had done the test hill at Brooklands in the past. The Hot Rod Hayride had an event down there, and you could go up the test hill and then drive a little bit of the bank on the way back round, which was great fun. Yeah,
because hopefully for this series of interviews, I've got Alan Wynne, who's the director of Brooklands Museum, lined up for an interview as well, and it's kind of pretty in line, isn't it, with the age of some of the vehicles that the VHRA deal with.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we've actually got one of our members has got Brooklands history. Not the member, but his car has. There's a guy who was the fastest on the beach the first year at Pendine with 114 miles an hour. A guy by the name of Neil Bennett. He drives a car that's the Baton Special, which is based around a set of 32 frame rails with a blown flathead in there. And that car has got Brooklands history. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but. That's got quite a past to it. So, yeah, I mean, whilst, a lot of the cars are built rather fresh, they've been sort of built in the last 20 years maybe, mostly out of old parts. We do have one or two that have got some proper pedigree there as well.
Yeah. I've got to express an interest because I am a VHRA member and I'm also a Brooklands Trust member, so express a bit of interest there.
We went down there a few years ago for what was supposed to be a full gymkhana, but there was about 3 or 4 events all on the same day, all within about a 20-mile radius of each other, and unfortunately it fell a little flat, but there was a couple of us down there with hot rods, but it would have been nice to have a few more there.
Yeah, I think they were looking for some cars they were doing some filming down there a while back, actually. They were looking for some period cars to sit along the side of the banking as well.
Right.
But mine, as always, when it's needed, was broken. So there you go. What can you do? You got your GAO event as well.
Yes, well that's
the hill climb, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you got your meltdown. That's the drags, isn't it?
Yeah, the Hot Rod Drags has been going for about 20 years, and it's been sort of run by different people, sort of on behalf of the people that organise the Hot Rod Drags and the Nostalgia Nationals, and it's just our turn at the moment, you know. So for the last few years, we've been helping with that. We sponsor the trophies and make sure everything runs nice on the day. Unfortunately, where the event takes place, it looks like it might be closing soon because, as with a lot of things these days, the land's worth an absolute premium, and it looks like it may be sold.
Yeah.
So,
it's a shame because when I was younger, I used to go over to Blackbush to the drags, and Don Garlett's turned up over there, and you know they really had some very serious stuff over there. But then eventually became a car auction, and there's not really enough room to do it over there anymore. It is. I think it's a bit the same as what's happening in the States, isn't it? They're losing a lot of their strips, or have lost them.
Well, this is the thing. I'm actually trying. I'd like to add another event to our bow. We do have drag racing with the Flathead Meltdown, which is just for the valve-in block stuff at Avon Park, and then there's an event called Atomic, which is a lifestyle weekender, and we have an 8th Mile flag start just for fun drag race there. But I would like us to have our own drag meeting, but it's finding a suitable place. And then B, somebody will let us just put it on as a VHRA event, because what I'd like to do is run it very similar to what the Antique Nationals is in California, all pre-49 stuff, all flathead or four-banged or fairly antique engines, and they get bikes involved there as well. It'd be nice because there's no one really putting on a proper traditional style drag meeting over here, but it's just trying to convince people that it's viable. But hopefully, with the success of GAO and certainly the success of Pendine, we might be able to persuade a drag strip owner or two to perhaps give us a chance and do that. That's something we'd really like to do.
Yeah, in terms of seeing rods at shows, actually, I was very impressed with the Retro Festival at Newbury Showground this year. Whilst it was just an overall retro festival, the amount of rods that were there was very impressive. There must have been 10 or 15 rods there, really nice ones. And,
with a lot of these retro events, there's a lot of the people that do the whole sort of spectrum of the scene.
Yeah.
It's from clothing through music to cars. I know I'm sort of certainly absorbed in that end of things. It's not just the cars for me. It goes all the way through. Through the decoration of the house and whatever else. It's again no real explanation why. It's just one of those things, it's not like I get up in the morning and decide I'm going to be, all 1940s. It's just the way things are.
Yes, right. We've got some, there's a couple of very august presenters that are actually part of this show. They're guys that are part of the AACA and stuff, but I have managed to get them to admit that they were hot rodders with 32 Fords and stuff like that when they were younger. So whilst they're very posh now. We for the last 3 years, we've been nominated in the International Historic Motoring Award. I was going to ask you about that, actually. Yeah, well, the first year we was nominated for the Event of the Year, which we tied with the Amelia Island Tours d'Elegance, which was, a huge honour. Last year we were up for Club of the Year, and this year, and I had the pleasure of sitting next to Don Garlitz for the evening. Lovely. I say I had the pleasure. I was cheeky enough. I knew he was coming over for it, so I was cheeky enough to ask if I could sit with him, and I managed to arrange that for me. And that was and although Don never won the Museum of the Year and we never won the Club of the Year, we had a great evening just chatting. And he mentioned Blackbush and a few other bits and pieces. That was great to spend time in the man's company. Yeah. And we're up again for Club of the Year again this year. But what I was going to say, with the first year we were there, people were introducing themselves around the table, and you introduce yourself and you say you're from the Vintage Hot Rod Association, and you see an eyebrow raised. And the guy next to me was up for publication of the year for a book he'd written on, I can't think of the guy's name now, but he was a road racer in the 50s.
and he was kicked out of Le Mans apparently for putting a Cadillac engine in a '49 Ford sedan.
Huh.
And I argued that surely that's just hot rodding by another name.
Yeah.
And this guy wasn't having a bit of it. He was quite adamant that it's not hot rodding.
No, I mean,
we get that over here. I mean, the term they like to use is specials, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is Austin Sevens and things like that. But they're just hot rods by another name.
I mean, if you look at a lot of the history, if you look at the Brock Yates books and stuff like that, where he's how the Americans took over Le Mans and stuff, they were effectively hot rods. They were Cobras. Yeah. A Cobra is about as much hot rod as you can get.
Well, the Cobra was built in the back of a hot rod shop, wasn't it?
Exactly.
I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, AC built the body and Shelby said, hang on, can I ram this big old Ford in it? And it's the same as you do with anything, isn't it?
I don't know if you know, that was actually done out of the back of the Moon Speed Shop.
Yeah, it was, because he hired some space there, didn't he, until he got going. And that's all how it always works. I mean, to be honest, in this country, Formula One came about like that as well, and it's... I think it's just people tend to try and put labels on things, but it's all everybody enjoying cars, and it's just if it's your car, you can do exactly what you like with it, as far as I'm concerned.
This is the thing. I think this is where we've found, going back to our event at Gow at Prescott, I think this is where we've found some good ground. Although it's completely the opposite end of the spectrum, with their multi-million-pound Bugattis, they're just there enjoying their old cars, and
exactly.
And they've said to us 2 years on the trot now when we've been there that it's been their favourite event that they've put on for the year, because we're doing it for no other reason than enjoyment.
Yeah, so I've just looked at the latest Jay Leno thing on YouTube, and he's got a load of guys in there with lowriders.
Right.
And he's absolutely fascinated by the workmanship, the paintwork, the way they put the hydraulics in there. And he's about as serious a car collector that you'd get. I mean, I actually met him once at Pebble Beach when me and my wife were over there, and you couldn't meet a nicer bloke. But he doesn't judge anybody on their car. If it's a car and you love it, that's great for him. It doesn't really matter what it is. And I think you can't get more serious a collector than him, I don't think.
Well, no, there can't be many more in the world that have got a collection and as diverse as his as well, And I know he likes to use his cars, doesn't he?
He does, and I think and I think that's what it's all about, really. And we're coming up to a break now, but one thing I will ask you about is some of the concern in the States is a little bit about the greying of the hobby, where the age of the hobby is it's dying out effectively in the States. But I'm thinking, with VHRA, to me, there is quite a younger element in it. So I think that's quite good. But we're just coming up to a break now. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back on the Classic Car Show right after these messages.